cr101radio.com, podcasts, and more.
21. Sheep. July the 14th, 1953. It was 12 years ago that I first moved into cow country in Nevada. A cattleman came up to me after a service in which I had used the familiar words of the 23rd Psalm, and he said, "Here in cattle country we don't like to hear the parts of the Bible that talk about sheep. We don't like being called sheep and the Lord being compared to a low-down sheep herder." I soon found out that just about everybody felt as he did. Sheep and sheepmen were not especially popular. In our little community, I was never able to buy lamb or mutton in the 8.5 years we were there. There is nothing unusual in all this. Much earlier in Western history, the sheep and cattle wars divided many a community and often brought considerable bloodshed to an area. An amusing instance of this prejudice was an Indian family in our congregation. Little Eddie, a 6-year-old Indian boy, was a high-spirited youngster. In his veins flowed the blood of the great Chief Joseph of the Nez Perce tribe and Chief Arimo of the Shoshones. At 6, little Eddie was a good horseman and, in fact, trick rider. I remember seeing his father standing on a bareback palomino at full gallop with little Eddie. But if he ever got out of hand, his father could always make him mind. In fact, have the boy in tears simply by shaking his head and saying, "Son, I guess a boy as disobedient as you will only grow up to be a sheep herder." That did it. Well, in a very real sense, these cattlemen are right. When the Bible calls us sheep, it doesn't mean to be sweet or sentimental. We know sheep, most of us, as cute little animals pictured on magazine covers every spring. We fail to understand, therefore, that when David said, "The Lord is my shepherd," Psalm 23:1, he knew how low he was rating himself in comparing himself to a sheep. When our Lord said, "I am the good shepherd and know my sheep," John 10:14, he wasn't flattering us. He knew what it meant to call us sheep. Let's look at sheep as they are and see what it means to be compared to them. First of all, sheep tend to follow blindly and unthinkingly. One of the worst things that can happen to a sheep range is road construction. As soon as sheep in their grazing hit a road or a trail, they stop feeding and start trailing. Mile after mile, they follow the leader until they are headed off. It's all pointless, but it's the very nature of sheep to follow, and to follow blindly. If we face ourselves honestly, we recognize that we too are like that. The very fact that we have styles in our clothes indicates that we are sheep-like. We depend upon leaders to determine what we shall wear and hate to be more than slightly out of line in such matters. Styles, fads, fashions all indicate our sheep-like following the leader. Advertising appeals to the sheep in us and depends on it for success. We are like sheep also in that we are easily lost. A horse knows its way home. In a storm, when you are lost and can't see any kind of trail in the whirling snow, if you give your horse a free rein, he will take you home. A dog finds its way too. But God, looking at lost and wayward humanity, could only say, "All we like sheep are gone astray." See Isaiah 53:6. We are like sheep also, in that we have the same affinity for dirt. A cat cleans itself patiently and meticulously. Cows, horses, and pigs roll around on the ground or rub against a fence or tree to clean themselves, but not sheep. Their heavy wool picks up dirt and becomes a grey-brown colour. The matted, dirty wool has an odour which is one of the things cowboys despise most about sheep. Sheep are totally incapable of cleaning themselves. And so, God, looking us over and seeing our inability to change our sinful nature, called us sheep. Sheep also are tender-skinned and easily hurt. The whole of a sheep's life seems to be one hurt after another, and we are all too much the same. Thin-skinned and sensitive, we drift from one hurting experience to another, or run headlong from one trouble into the next. Finally, sheep are dependent animals. They must always be protected and provided for. In the face of a real threat, they are helpless and futile. We too, when we face the facts of sin and death, have a like helplessness. We sin and we die, and we can do nothing to eliminate either from our lives. We are dependent on God for our salvation from both, and we require His protection and providential care. Thus, the cattlemen are right. For the Bible to call us sheep is really an insult to our pride. We hate to admit the truth, although in our very rebellion we show our sheep-like nature, our impotent pride in the presence of God, our natural affinity for trouble, our inability to do anything but sin and die. And so Christ says to us, I am the good shepherd, and know my sheep. John 10:14. Come unto me, all ye that labour and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Matthew 11:28. Then, when we follow Him, we are no longer lost, no longer helpless and hurt, no longer unclean, no longer trotting blindly down the trail of death. We have a good shepherd, and He leads us now. With David, we can joyfully say, The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Psalm 23:1.